Everybody gets to agree. Right. All right, my clock says 10:01, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So everybody that's watching live, welcome. We'll have an opportunity a little bit later for questions, or if you just have something that's so urgent and pressing, feel free to raise your hand, jump in, ask a question. You won't throw me off too bad. This is an informal interview, so we'll just rock and roll. But Allie, this is Allie Albert. She's been with Choice. I don't know. I mean, you've been with for over 2 years, right? I mean, maybe...
I lose track of the date.
Yeah.
I know it was in December. I think it was 2018.
Yeah, so I think you came on about 6 months after the company started, actually. And so you've been here quite a while. You've been through lots of changes with us, and as we've evolved, and we've loved having you. We've loved watching your business grow. I remember meeting you in the coffee shop the first time. Yep. We met and talked. So super excited to have watched your journey. And so I wanted to bring you on today just basically so that you could kind of share that story. You know, what I've learned is we've brought on new agents. I've talked to people, whether they're new in the business or been in the business a long time, is, you know, agents grapple with kind of what is it supposed to be like to be a real estate agent? And what does it look like to have success as an agent? And of course, there is no one picture of how people have success or what it looks like for successful agents. So I thought it would be great for you to share your story and then have an opportunity if agents have questions. And then I've got some stuff I'd like to run through with you as well. But first of all, I guess welcome and thank you for joining me. Do you want to just start off, kind of just give your, you know, rundown of what's your journey in real estate? How did you get into it and where has it gone for you?
Yeah, sure. So I won't get too deep into the weeds on this because it is a long story, but I always was interested in houses and the process of buying and selling real estate, but my ex-husband was not supportive of that, so I didn't pursue that as a career. But in 2015, when he moved out, the very first thing I did was I looked into agents in Raleigh and set up some interviews and try to figure out, okay, how do I get my license? Like, what's the first step? And so September of 2015, I got my real estate license. And I realized pretty quickly, you know, I was a full-time student at the time, and I did freelance book editing on the side just for money. And I had 3 kids too. So I realized pretty quickly I could not sustain the lifestyle that I was used to. I wasn't getting child support or help that way. And we really were pretty new to the area, so I didn't have a support system in place. So I moved out of the house we were in and I got an apartment, but I had to put up a huge amount of money for rent because, you know, I had really no designated income. So that was crazy for me to put down 1 year of rent up front. As a single mom, it was frightening. So we moved into an apartment. We were there a few months, and then the guy across the street from us started stalking me. He followed me to all of my open houses, to all my showings. I mean, it was scary. Once I realized what was happening, it was scary. So I filed a restraining order, which then, of course, if any of you have ever had to do that, I hope you haven't, but if you have, it's pretty typical for them to file one back. So that's what he did. But his judge made it so close, like how many yards we could be from each other. I couldn't check my mail. I couldn't go to my garage. It was scary. So, and it wasn't stopping him, you know, from stalking me. So the kids and I had to move out. I basically dwindled my savings to nothing at that point, trying to pay for my apartment. So we had no place to live. Just friends that I had met already in the business, just a few months in, you know, allowed us to sleep on their couch, or I spent quite a few nights in my car when the kids weren't with me. It was scary. I had literally hit rock bottom. I mean, I remember scraping together like coins from the kids' piggy banks to fill the gas in the car. And I had little IOU keeping track of what I needed to pay my kids back with, it was scary. I was waiting tables at night to make ends meet, which I had never done before. It was eye-opening and honestly a really good experience for sales because, you have to make that connection right away, figure out what they want and figure out how to keep them happy so that in the end you get paid. So,
Was
that
that
was
your first experience in sales? Like, was that the first type of sales job you'd had?
well, I thought so at the time, but looking back, I mean, I had done other things that kind of prepared me for sales. And I think being on the debate team in college, helped me learn how to counter people's arguments. Different things in life had kind of led me to where I felt, and I'm not a people person by any means, but I feel like I can talk to anybody. And I like bantering with people. So like my best tippers that would come in to see me all the time were people that I would, tease or I'd make fun of a little bit, or something that I knew was going to get them engaged. So, it was fun. I enjoyed that. And then as time went on, I realized it was really difficult to try to balance a real estate career, getting kids to school, home from school, going to work at night, waiting tables. It was just a lot to balance. So I needed to figure out how to make the money that I wanted to make, doing what I wanted to do, which was not waiting tables for the rest of my life. Not that there's a problem with that, but that wasn't for me. That's why I got my license and why I was paying desk fees and, renewal fees and for all my post-licensing classes. So without having a sphere of influence here, I just really tried to hone in on the people that I did know. And I didn't want it to be salesy because I really hate that. It makes me feel gross to be so pushy with people. So I just tried to make the connections the same way I did with, customers at my tables. I knew if they were there to celebrate, I could always upsell, hey, let's have some shots, or how about dessert or whatever. Yep. That was easy for me. So I tried to come from a place of adding value to people. And everybody knew I was brand new in real estate. And it wasn't like I was going to find clients, 19-year-olds who wait tables. That's not where I was going to find. I was going to find people. So honestly, my first few clients, after I started doing this full time, which I would say was 2018, were customers that I waited on. Yep. At the Wild Wings and Crossroads. That's where I got my customers from because I had made a connection with them, and that taught me something that I still try to use today. Just building relationships with people has been huge for me. I think so often we're told in sales that our mantra should be ABC, right? Always be closing. But for me, it was always more about always be giving. And that has helped a lot. And it makes me feel like I'm not sale, I'm more about helping. So that's kind of how I got started.
Let me ask this. So what was it like making that decision? And what did it look like when you decided, okay, I'm going to go do real estate full time? I mean, was it like you woke up one day? Was it an evolution of you took less shifts at the restaurant? I mean, when did you decide, okay, this is going to be my only source of income? This is what I'm doing.
So that was really hard. That was a hard decision. And there was a transition point where I had shifted from, I knew I couldn't work nights anymore. And I had shifted actually to a jewelry store in the mall because I could walk there from my house. So, and they gave me the shifts that were perfect for me to drop the kids off, go to work, leave work, and then, pick the kids up from school. So I could get more hours. So I started doing that. And when I realized I had gotten to the point where I had developed enough buyer leads that it was impinging on, I couldn't fit both into the hours in a day. So I made that decision. And by then I had gotten remarried and my husband was very supportive of it. And he's like, you need to just take the plunge. But I wanted to make sure that I could make enough money to support my business. I didn't want him to support my business or my kids or, whatever. Like, I wanted to make sure I was doing it on my own. So it was very, very scary.
Yep.
I tried to build up my pipeline, and, because I came from a place of giving, I honestly helped a lot of renters up to that point, which, it's not a lot of money, but there was some cash in it that was helping. But I knew that by keeping in touch with those people and adding value to their lives, because I knew what it was like to be without a mailing address, and everybody needs a place to live. So I knew that by pouring into those people, it was going to come back around. That's not why I did it, but it did eventually start to come back around. So renters, like a year later, I knew they were in the pipeline, that they were going to be buying. So I felt confident that I could take off the training wheels and just go for it. Just go for it.
I mean, that's awesome. Two things. One, on the working with renters thing, I've talked to several agents recently who have a similar philosophy on that, and how they kind of started building their career was working with renters, because maybe somebody referred them, and so then you helped that referral. So the referrer was happy with you, the tenant was happy with you, and then they became a buyer a year later or 9 months later or whatever. So that I think that resonates. There are a lot of agents who have kind of taken that path, and I don't think it gets talked about much. I know I did that early in my career. I was much more willing to work with. Now, when you've got 15 buyers you're working with, you're probably not showing rentals as much, but
it's not glamorous, that's for sure.
No,
it is not glamorous. My first buyers came from customers at the restaurant, and then like my second phase of my career, I felt like they were coming from renters that I'd helped, and I did as many open houses as I could, and really tried to work those neighborhoods and work every buyer who came in, especially the unrepresented ones, to try to get my database full of people who needed a realtor. And it's not, neither one is necessarily the most glamorous thing. I mean, you don't see that on HGTV when people are looking at homes, but you got to start somewhere.
You're building a pipeline. I mean, you're getting people into your database, and it's easy to look at someone who's been in the business for 15 years and they have a database of past clients. But when you're starting off, you don't have that. You have to build a database of future clients, and then nurture those. Well, I also want to comment and just recognize the fact that you made the decision to go full time in real estate. You had 3 kids. I tell people, when I got into real estate, I was 22, and I left a full-time, good-paying job, and I had saved up 3 months of expenses, thinking that was sufficient. Right? I was ignorant to the fact that that's not going to cut it. But I was 22 with no children and single. It was much easier for me to just say, who cares? I didn't even think it was risky. When you've got a family, it's a different story, and that's not an easy decision to make. But if you want to be a real estate agent, at some point, you've got to make that decision, right, and make that leap.
It was scary. And I knew that they were watching me. They saw my struggle. They knew what was happening with why we had to move and why we didn't have a place to live. And I tried to keep things as normal as I could for them. But they saw me struggle, and they saw me struggling as a full-time student. They saw me struggling, to get my license. And we were very close. They knew what was going on. And I knew that they were watching me, and especially I think, like, I have a daughter too. I have 2 boys and a girl. And I think I wanted to show her that I could do it. That I don't have to depend on a man to help me through life. Like, I can do it on my own, and she can too. So
you've done it.
Thank you.
So you've been full-time 3 years in real estate, basically. And last year, 2020, so basically 2 years in, you did over 7 million in volume. So a pretty impressive year. that I would say most agents have never done 7 million in volume in a year, regardless of how long they've been in the business. So kudos on that. But talk to me about that, right? I mean, where does your business in general come from? And talk about just some of the things you've done over the years in terms of lead generation. You know, we talked about the getting some clients from, you know, the part-time job you had, helping renters. What else have you done, and kind of what led to 2020 being such a banner year for you?
Yeah, it's funny because going through the year, I didn't realize that I was having a banner year for me. Like, I knew I was making more money, but my sales were still only averaging like 300,000. I mean, I had a couple that were, you know, bigger price points, but I had a lot of sales in the 200s and a few, I think, in the 100s. So that was a lot of volume for me to get to 7 million in sales. But I think building relationships with other realtors across the country, and even here in the Triangle, helped me to generate new business that way, just building relationships with people, and so that they trust me. Referring out helped a lot too. But after now, like, building up my database, keeping in touch with people at least on a monthly basis was important for me to start doing. So I had set aside marketing dollars for this at the end of 2019, because I had a feeling 2020 was going to be big for me. Like, I felt it coming. Like, I could feel it, and I was going to ride that wave. So I thought, I'm going to go all in on this. So I invested a lot in marketing. I support, my kids go to Cary High, or I have one graduate now, which is really hard to believe, but I have my rest of my kids are at Cary still. So I'm a club sponsor. I volunteer a lot there. I support the fine arts program there. And I volunteer a lot of time. So I'm not just trying to throw money at it. I like invest too. I started the magazines, like the bi-monthly magazines with Home by Design, which was huge. I didn't realize how much people would love that. And it's a little pricey, but I can't tell you how many times people have reached out to me about something in the magazine, like they think I wrote it or something. I'm like, I didn't write it, but okay, thank you. Yeah. You know, but those kinds of things, and just making sure I'm following up with, you know, past clients. Like, how are you? Do you need a refi? Do you have somebody you know who is looking to buy or sell? And even, it's funny because even the clients that I thought it was a little rocky, some of them are my best referral sources. Yep. But yeah, just I think learning what works for me is key, because when you start getting on like Facebook groups or different blogs and things, it's really easy, social media too, it's really easy to just like spread yourself so thin with all the things you could be doing that it's almost paralyzing, right? Like, you can't, how do you hone in on like the one or two or maybe three things that really works for you? And that's what you got to find. I think you have to find like what you're passionate about, how you can connect with people, and just hone in on those couple of things. So you're not spread so thin that you can't keep up with all the things you feel like you should be doing.
I love that, because real estate agents are definitely guilty of the next shiny object kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we hear a podcast, we hear a YouTube video, we hear somebody talk about, oh, for sale by owners, or expired, or open houses, or neighborhood farming, or door knocking, or whatever, fill in the blank, doing videos for local businesses. There could be any number, hundreds, thousands of ways to generate business, but you're right. There's no need to do all of them. You can't be the best at everything. There isn't enough time for that. And if you don't enjoy it, if you're not happy and passionate about doing it, you're not going to do it. The bottom line is, like you said, connect to people, build relationships. So then we know that's the core piece. So then what are the legs of that stool that are going to support the relationship building and communicating with people, connecting with people? And so for you, it's the giving your time and volunteering and doing the marketing with Cary High and the M Club and the different groups there. You talked about communicating with your database, your sphere of influence. So
Yeah.
that's another one. Is there anything else that you think is kind of one of those legs that supports that mission?
Yeah, I mean, and it has to feel natural too, right? Because people are going to know if it feels forced, and you're not going to enjoy it either.
Right.
I mean, I got into this business because I knew I could make unlimited money if I put my mind to it, but I didn't want to do it miserably either. So that's important too. But the other thing that I've really tried to, I've worked, a lot of my business came from open houses, and 2020, obviously that wasn't happening. So I had to come up with something else. So I started really trying to, and I couldn't really get together with people, right? So none of us could. So that was a challenge because it kind of threw my whole
all of your ways
idea.
of getting business just got blown up.
Exactly. So I really honed in on social media, especially Instagram. And I need to do better with LinkedIn because I think that's a really good option too. But again, I don't want to spread myself too thin, and I don't know a lot about LinkedIn. And I know every once in a while I get a message on my phone and I'm like 600 messages or something. I don't even know what's going on with that. So, but with Instagram, it's easy. I'm learning to do videos and things like that, which will help my business. But I'm shocked at how many people reach out to me organically that I've never met before. They don't know anybody that I know. And they're like, hey, I just moved here and you're the first agent I connected with. You know, I have an afternoon appointment today with somebody who reached out to me over the weekend. I mean, it's crazy to me that I can't imagine such a big investment financially, trusting someone that I don't know or no one I know knows. So I don't know. Instagram has been a really good source of business for me. You know, I can feel it's like gaining traction for me. So
well, I like how I mean, the takeaway there. So you in a year where was your best year you've ever had, your kind of two main ways of generating business essentially disappeared, and yet you were able to have your best year ever, in part because you've built a foundation, right? That foundation I always talk about. So you built the foundation, but then you pivoted to a new leg on your stool, which was Instagram, which is so cool, which of course is a perfect segue because next week we have Taylor Link is doing a class for us on Instagram. And we have an agent, Sarah Cobb, who one of the reasons she joined Choice, and the way she even discovered us was through, we have so many agents who do such a great job on Instagram. You guys have such a great presence out there.
So cool. That's
kudos,
very cool.
Yeah, kudos to you guys on that. That's fantastic. Okay, let me actually, I think AJ, do you have your hand up? You want to unmute yourself? See if he has a question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me, Brian?
We got you.
All right. Yeah, I had a question before I get sidetracked and don't forget my question. So my question is you know, she's honed in on a lot of her, you know, her background and everything. What was it like getting started? Like, how many houses did you sell in your first year? What was it like? I mean, you kind of gave us what it was like getting started, but I mean, when did you start really selling houses? Like, did you sell 5 your first year? You know, just that's what I had a question about, like, because I'm in my first year and I'm trying to, you know, expand my knowledge and everything and try to take a little bit from everybody and everything I can listen to and put it all together and see what works for me.
I think that's a great question. So I'm not one of those agents that can say, you know, I hit the ground running and I sold like, you know, 50 houses in the first year. I think I sold 2. I don't know. And I drove, oh my God, I drove everywhere from like Clayton to Rollsville to Youngsville. I mean, I was all over the place. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have a mentor like helping me figure out how do you do this. I mean, real estate school, they tell you like what things are laws, what are the rules for real estate, how you fill out the form. I mean, if you can read it, you can kind of figure out how to fill it out, right? But there's nothing practical about real estate school. And I didn't have a mentor to help me. So I wasted a lot of time just driving and not figuring out how to drum up business. So I think I maybe sold 2 my first year. They were not, anything to write home about. And my second year, maybe 4 or 5. I could look back and see, but I mean, at that point it was so few, I wasn't keeping track. Like my kids and I would literally go to Sweet Frog to celebrate when I had a closing, because I knew that would help keep me accountable and they would be excited for me. But it was not, I mean, I could probably count on 2 hands how many houses I sold in my first 2 years. It wasn't impressive at all, but I was spread really thin. And I think that's when I had to come to the point where I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I just need to commit. I need to figure out a way to drum up business and to commit to it. Yeah, not a lot.
I think that's a common thing too. I mean, sometimes all of the you don't know what you don't know, some of the mistakes you make or the things you would do differently. But if you didn't have that experience, you wouldn't know to do it differently. So that's part of growing. And it's a struggle for any dual career agent, which you were at that time. And we have a number of dual career agents here. It is tough to find the time to do both of them. And but for you, I think a big takeaway is, while you didn't have a lot of transactions those first few years, you were building that foundation, right? You knew, even then, you knew it was all about relationship building.
Yeah.
And so you established yourself in the mind of your database.
Right. And I got really good at figuring out what people actually want. I got tired of driving around. I mean, I learned a lot about the triangle, but more than I figured I needed to know. But you need to figure out when you're talking to buyers, because I mean, most of us start with buyers. I mean, I would love to meet agents who just start with sellers right off if they're not on a team. But when you're first starting, most of your clients are going to be buyers. And I got very good at figuring out what they actually wanted, not always what they say they want, but what do they actually want. And I think it's okay to like counter with them. As a young agent, I didn't realize it was okay to disagree with the buyer. But if they're giving you a wish list that really doesn't match up with their price point or the location that they're looking in, I mean, be honest with them, because you're going to waste their time too, and they're going to get frustrated, and you're going to get frustrated. Yeah. Be their little psychiatrist, or figure out what they're actually wanting. I mean, I think the cool thing was in 2019 for me, I think I was down to only showing like 2.2 houses per buyer before we'd go under contract. I had narrowed down what they wanted to the point where I wasn't driving all over, they weren't driving all over. In 2 to 3 houses, we were under contract.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, it totally got blown out of the water in 2020 and 2021, but I learned what I needed to learn, which was figuring out, get to the root of what they want. And that's by asking questions like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do in your free time? What are your hard no's, things you absolutely do not want in a house? Because everybody says, oh, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garage,
nice kitchen.
Less. Right. Open floor plan. Okay, well, that's not really specific enough for me. Do you want to be close to greenway trails? Do you want to walk to Trader Joe's? Do you want to walk to the breweries downtown or in downtown Cary? Like, really honing in on how they live and getting a feel for who they are as people and how they spend their money, how they spend their time. That was valuable. And you also get to know them too. And they feel like you're taking an interest in them, but really, and you are, but really what you're getting to the bottom of is knowing those neighborhoods and areas well enough to be able to say, okay, I think these are like a couple of really great areas. Let's start there. So you're not steering them to something or away from something, but it's a great place to start instead of the entire freaking triangle and nobody knows what they're doing. And you're driving for 6 months around trying to find, and then they end up just signing a lease again, you know? So getting to the bottom of what they need and what they really do want and value is huge.
So then with that, so you do buyer consultations with your buyer clients? Where you
Always.
sit down and go through a process to learn about them, right?
Yep,
As
always.
as opposed to just jumping in the car and going to see the first house they send you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if it's somebody who knows the neighborhood that they're looking in, and you know, I'll meet them for that first house if they think that's what they really want. But I really feel like it's important for the way I run my business to at least have a phone call with them, you know, and you can frame it as let's spend, you know, 30 minutes up front so we don't waste time,
right?
You know, in the future.
Well, I want to go back to something too you said about realizing that you can tell clients, you can disagree with your clients, right? I mean, one script that I love is that I tell people, you tell your clients, the reason so many clients hire me is because I tell them the truth as opposed to just what they want to hear. I believe that I owe that to you as your agent. And they like that. But here's the other part is that puts you in control. They see you as a professional who's there to actually evolve their home buying process versus a door opener. And if you get positioned in a client's mind as a door opener, of course they don't have respect for you. Of course they don't have loyalty to you because you're a door opener. But if you're somebody that brings value to them and you do that by taking control and not letting them drive the bus, I mean, I think you do a really great job of that. And, you know, and you, from the very beginning, you said, you know, these clients you met at the restaurant, they knew you were brand new in real estate and yet they wanted to work with you. And it was because of that connection and professionalism you were able to establish.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, they can now just go to a door and use the QR code to let themselves in.
Right.
So why do they need me? You got to figure out why they need you and add that value to them, because we know as agents, they're not going to be they're not going to know what they don't know either if they choose to be an unrepresented buyer. And for what real reason? There's no real reason for that. We have so much value to add. So, you know, pushing back a little bit is okay. I mean, there's a way of doing it, obviously, but that's important. And I think even just before you go out for showings, you know, sending them, because right now, who does a whole day of showings? It's too hard. There's not that many houses out there. So before you go out to show 2 or 3 houses, I always email the disclosures from the MLS, you know, the night before or whatever, that morning, so that they can read and look through. I've glanced over too, but I mean, my little trick that I do is I send myself a blind copy. So if I can't remember everything on the disclosure, so if we're out at the house and they're asking me questions, you know, I can pull up the email on my phone that I've sent myself, the property disclosures, and can help answer those questions. But they're not going to get that from Zillow or from Open Door, you know, getting in with their QR code. Those are things that, you know, do add value. But yeah, you have to push back sometimes.
Yep. So let me ask this. Have there been any lead generation strategies that you've used over the course of your career that didn't work or that you stopped or for whatever reason?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think so. I think I've started slowly enough that I was testing the waters, sort of. I don't buy Facebook ads anymore. The algorithms changed so much that I wasn't seeing any value in them. So I don't do that anymore. I try to just spend my marketing dollars on things that I feel good about. But no, I think I just started slowly enough and kind of like watched people around me and see how they do things and what they do, and kind of picked and chose and just really stuck with what I thought I felt good about.
Yep. All right. So then last question I have is, and then we'll see if anybody else has any other questions, but real estate can be a roller coaster, not just income wise, we all know that, but really emotionally. And so, I like that one thing I heard from you a second ago was you believe that you bring value to the transaction, right, to your client.
Yeah.
So that to me is the first thing, is actually believing that you're worth the income that you make, you're worth someone hiring you. But how do you handle kind of the ups and downs emotionally of real estate? I mean, how do you are there any things that work for you? Do you still go through those ups and downs at this point?
Yeah, I mean, wow, that is, I think, to me, the biggest challenge of real estate. And I think looking back, trying to, drum up business and all of that, that's emotional too, because for all different reasons, right? But we do all need money to live. So I think from start to finish, this business is emotional, and we are investing in the lives of other people who trust us to help them pick wise investments. I mean, the whole process is just emotional anyway. I think that is the biggest challenge, though, is taking our personal emotions out of the equation. Some of the hardest transactions I've had have honestly been because the agents on the other side of the transaction can't do that. And for me, I'm an empath by nature, so I feel everybody's everything, which I think is just another challenge for me in this business. But spinning that, makes me a better agent, I think. But we really need to learn to like go back to the Godfather quote, right? Like, it's just business.
Yeah.
It's just business. And we can fight for our clients, and we can, get the best deals we can and negotiate. I mean, hard for them. But at the end of the day, it's just business. It's not emotional. And turning my phone off at a certain time at night has been huge for me. Telling my clients up front, like, listen, you can text or call or email or send me a message on Facebook Messenger any time of the day or night. It's fine. But just know I've blocked off time for my family and for myself. That's helped a lot. It's helped me to unplug that emotion, because when we are stressed and we get emotional, it's just take that time and unplug and realize that at the end of the day, it's just business. And when we start to feel that stress of, oh my God, I really need a closing right now, or I'm not going to make my mortgage payment, that's emotional, right? And that's not our client's problem.
Yep.
That's our problem. Don't bring your emotions into the scenario. And honestly, I mean, I've just seen so many crazy stories. Last year was like the year of unstable agents. I mean, I know you remember some of my stories from last year with getting the real estate commission involved and everything else. I mean, there were some crazy stories, but taking that emotion out is really, really important. Making sure you take some time for yourself. I did that a lot this year, actually. My kids are getting to the age where they're growing and they're moving out, and it's emotional for me that way too. So I try not to bring that to my work, but I took a lot of time this summer with them, and my business, I would say my business suffered from that, but I've hit the ground running once school started. So maybe my business numbers suffered, but I don't feel burnt out now. And I know I can finish 2021 strong, and not emotional.
Life is about more. Life's about more than the volume that you're producing, right? This quality of life thing is something I talk about a lot.
That's one thing I appreciated about you when we first chatted, was I loved that you seem to have a work-life balance. And I appreciated that. That's something I emulate in other really great agents who can do that.
Yep. Yeah. You know, one of the, in a long time ago, I played a lot of poker. All right. I was a kind of a big gambler in that sense. And if anybody that's ever gambled before, but maybe especially poker, when things are going well, like you think you're untouchable and everything is great and nothing could ever bring you down. And then the very next hand, it does a complete 180 and you now think you're an idiot and you can't do anything right. And why are you even sitting at the table? And that can happen a lot in real estate, where you think you figured it all out. The year is going great, everything's perfect. And then somehow 4 deals fall apart and you lose 2 people that were going to list with you because they just sold to Zillow or whatever. And now you think, oh my gosh, why am I even in this business anymore? This isn't for me. I'm not cut out for this. And it's like, well, last week you thought you were the best agent ever. And this week you think you're not cut out for it. And but I think that's a reality of real estate, that you need to know it early on in your career so that you can manage through that as you continue to grow. Because I've been in it, I don't know, 16 years now, and it still happens even today in my role. And so, but I was going to ask you another question about how do you take time for yourself? And you kind of spoke to that a little bit, but let me just tag in one last question is, how do you go about setting boundaries with your clients? Because you talked about that, turning your phone off. Like, what does that look like for you tangibly? What do you tell your clients? What are those boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think one way to, real quick, to go back to the roller coaster ride, one thing that you can do to kind of level off, at least for me, level off the day-to-day emotional roller coaster of just the highs and lows of the business in general, is to just set a daily schedule and do the same thing every day. I mean, I have a background in weightlifting competitions. I'm all about like pushing myself. I love that. I love doing things that I ran marathons. You know, I love just challenging myself and pushing myself to the limit. It feels good to me. So I think setting that calendar and knowing, like, when I was lifting weights, I had days, especially as women, like hormones and everything that happens with us and having babies. I knew some days I was going to go to the gym and I'm not going to hit a PR every day, but I got to be there. I got to put the time and effort in to still do it. You know, weightlifters and other athletes will tell you it's part of, like, a huge part is being like in the kitchen. You know, it's not all gym time,
right?
Behind the scenes stuff, right? So
pushing that big weight is the sexy part, but all of the nutrition, the sleep, that kind of thing is where the magic happens.
And the same is true in real estate. And I don't know if that resonates with anybody listening, if anybody has had that background or not, but the same is true with anything that you're doing. You're not going to be your best every single day. Every single day is not going to be the best day ever. Because if it was, would you really ever have a best day ever?
Right.
No. So you just have to go and do the things that you've already focused on, the things you already know are going to work for you, or that you're going to commit to see if they work for you, and just do those things every day. To me, that's key. Anything in life you want to be successful at, you can't go based on, well, today sucked. You know, I'm not going to do this again. So that's not working now. No, but focus on a few things and then stick to those and do that every day or every week or whatever your plan is. It might take time to see the results, and it's still going to be an up and down, but the ups will start to get more frequent, right? And the lows will start to get less frequent. You'll start to feel it less painful when you know, okay, today was a bad day, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow and, you know, plan for better results. But you got to put that work in every day.
Awesome.
So then, what was your question about my schedule?
Or just boundaries that you set with clients. Do you tell them there are certain days or times you're available, not available?
Yeah, so I think establishing up front, you don't want to hit them with a surprise, like, I'm going out of town for 2 weeks. I know we just met, but, you know, sorry. You want to establish up front that your family or your whatever your pastime is or whatever is important to you. Listen, I have a family. For me, this is what I say. I have a family, they have after school commitments and sports teams, and I've made a commitment to them to be there. So I shut my phone off. If you don't hear from me, it's not that I'm ignoring you, I promise, but I have to take time to recharge too, just like you do. And I'll definitely get back to you the next day. And I do work 7 days a week. I take most of Monday off usually, at least I did in the summer. I was taking Mondays off because it seemed to be the slowest, day anyway for work. But I still take a couple minutes in the morning to reach back out to people who may have contacted me on Sunday, but just letting them know up front that I have other things too, but I will get back to you. I promise I will, within 24 hours. And it's usually earlier, but honestly, most agents I'm finding don't work at night anyway. The attorneys aren't working at night. Your lender is probably not working at night or just doesn't want to be, which I can't blame them because I don't necessarily want to be either. If it's an emergency and I know we're coming down to like the end of due diligence period or closings in 2 days and, stuff's a mess, that's, there are exceptions, obviously, but as a general rule of thumb, I do try to take some time off.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I've always found if you tell them up front, then they're fine with it. Nobody wants to be surprised. So set your boundaries, they'll be fine. And even if you happen to have children, but even if for those listening that don't, you can still just say the generic Sunday is for my family time or whatever it is.
Yeah. Or I have an ongoing appointment on Sunday. That could be, your personal day that you spend yoga in the park and you go get brunch after and you just don't want to talk to anybody, and that's okay. Everybody has their things that are important to them, and we should be in this business to be able to finance our life. It shouldn't be our life.
Right.
That's my opinion on that. But
well, and I think it goes back to if you believe it, then it will convey to your clients, right? If you believe that you deserve a day off and you aren't guilted into working 7 days a week, then you'll be able to tell your clients that with confidence, and they're gonna perceive that and understand it, and it's just gonna be the way it is.
Yeah, especially if you're very attentive to them when you're working.
Yeah.
Right. Then they can appreciate, she works hard.
You can't take 6 days off a week.
Right, exactly. Or if you're going to, you have to have somebody else that you've partnered with that you've got. I think that's important too, is finding somebody else. Especially, we have so many great choice agents that just finding somebody else that you connect with that can help you. That's been huge for me too. Just being able to take a week off here and there or a long weekend, knowing that I've got agents I can trust to show houses for me. And honestly, like, that's been huge. Just having, I don't have to be on a team to have a team. We're all here in this together.
Love that. Love it. AJ, you got a question?
Yeah, I have one more. I have another question.
What's up?
I don't mean to sidetrack off of what she was just talking about, but when she was talking about, advertising and advertising in the magazine and stuff like that, at what part of her career did she decide to set aside a budget for advertising?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess I'm trying to remember. So I got my license in September 2015. I really tried to focus more on my career in 2018. And by 2019, at the end of 2019, I met with my accountant and I realized, like, I don't know if it was so much like I knew that 2019 was going to be a big year for me, or if I hoped it was going to be a big year for me. But either way, I was going to commit that this was going to be a big year. So at the end of 2018, I told my accountant I need to set up an LLC and be serious about this. And he was, he was trying to be the accountant that he is, and like drawing this on the board about how, if you're not making this much money, it's not going to make sense. And like, don't worry, I've got that handled. I will make it. You do your thing and I'm going to do my thing. So I committed at the end of that year to really mindfully spend marketing dollars on things. So I guess it would have been the end of my third year of real estate that I decided my year 4 was going to be it. And that's when I really started marketing, because I didn't want random people that I, especially with my history, I didn't want random people that I didn't know, for my business clients. That was me personally. I wanted people that I knew, or that someone that I knew. So yeah, for me, it worked out that year 4 was when I really started honing in on that.
And it's no coincidence that's when you started with Choice Residential, of course.
That definitely helped, because the money that I was spending on commission splits, I was like, it's a no-brainer for me to put some of that money at least into marketing. I was spending it already. So I gave myself a raise and I put some of that money into marketing. And that was huge. Honestly, that was really huge for me.
Cool.
Yeah, it was funny because I got the email from my past company with my year-end breakdown of how much I spent, on commission splits and desk fees and everything. And I had it pulled up on my screen, looking at it in the Excel spreadsheet, when I got an email from Brian that I answered on my phone. And I was like, your timing could not be better, because I had some sticker shock with how much I had spent for what felt like not much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, sometimes the timing works out. All right, we got a couple questions in here. So let me see. Okay. Home by Design. So when I send out this recording, Shalini, I'll also include the email address of the person you can contact about Home by Design magazine if you want to get some more information. And then Andrew asked about a sense of what percentage or what kind of marketing dollars, what percentage of what you were making, I guess, went into marketing, and where were you putting that money?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I tried to market on the cheap, except for the magazine. I committed to the magazine because I knew it's one touch that I don't have to cognitively do every other month. And because I didn't have a huge sphere of influence anyway, it wasn't as expensive up front. I can't say a percentage because I just committed to doing it. I had the money that I had from, my extra money that I had at the end of 2018, I knew would hold me over for like 6 months. And I figured, okay, if in 6 months this magazine isn't doing anything for me, I'll reevaluate. But because I didn't have that many people to send it to, you pay per magazine. That helped. Now I've added to that list quite a bit, and so my expenses for it are greater. But I saw its value right away, so I decided to do that for sure. And by the end of that year, that's when I started sponsoring like the Imp Club and sponsoring the Fine Arts Club at school. And then this year I started a newsletter for my neighborhood, inspiration from Heather Donovan, because she's an amazing rock star listing agent in her neighborhood. And I love my neighborhood where I live. And we're right across the street from the high school that I support so heavily that I figured it's a no-brainer, So really my marketing dollars are spent in 3 places: my neighborhood newsletter, the magazines to my sphere, and to sponsoring the clubs at the high school. And I think it's kind of cool that all of those things also allow me to have conversations with people, like putting an ad in the paper or putting my face on a billboard or something like that. Although my face is on the billboard at the school, which is embarrassing still every time I walk in the football stadium. But those things, you're just spending money, in my opinion, you're just spending money, but you're not connecting with people. That's why I stopped doing Facebook ads too, because I never really had a conversation with anybody from the Facebook ads, So finding the things that don't cost a lot up front is great, like social media. You know, if you want to spend your marketing dollars, if you don't have a lot of money to spend up front, you know, figuring out using some of that to take classes on you know, social media tips. I mean, Taylor's doing a session next week. I'm excited to go to learn about that. Or you know, figuring out like Brian's video this morning about sending videos to your sphere, that's free. You know, figuring out ways you don't have to spend a lot of money up front on marketing. Just figure out what feels good to you and just be consistent with it.
And Shalini asked about the, oh, I'm getting some feedback from my end. Shalini asked about the neighborhood newsletter. What do you put in that content wise? Are you writing it? Are you creating it? How much time is going into that? And what's on that?
Yeah, so I think in a past recording we have Heather and Greg did interview like this, and that's where I got the inspiration for it. I was so impressed by those two. It was really good. So if you can go back and watch theirs, I don't want to steal all their thunder, but yeah, Heather does a really amazing newsletter. So I kind of got my inspiration from her and just made it kind of my own thing. And she was gracious enough to answer like a million questions that I had in an email. So she's cool. But yeah, I put like market stats. I put market stats for Olive Cary, for our zip code, and then for our neighborhood, and compare them with last month. I live where Fenton is going in. So I think we had a conversation thread going in our group, Facebook group, maybe last week about Fenton. That's going to be huge for our area. So, you know, I keep them updated on that. I've kind of on a first name basis now with the project manager over there, because I've asked him a million questions too, but I update on that because everyone's interested in it. And it's information that's not found in like the News and Observer or the Cary Citizen. So people have really responded to that. You know, pool hours and like random stuff. I know Heather does sales that she's had in the neighborhood and things like that too. And I think that's a good idea. But just things that people find valuable or important. Or if like I found there's a really good sale at Lowe's coming up where, I forget what it was last year, they were giving away free trees. You know, I post that in there, hey, on this day, there's free trees at Lowe's. You just have to show your, you know, whatever. And people love it. And I'm starting to get some good feedback, and I use a local printer to do that. So I created it, and I just email that to him, and I use the tax records. I did this by hand. There may be a better way or like a easier way, but I did it by hand because I wanted to make sure it was very accurate, like with my Excel spreadsheet. So I went into the database and I pulled everybody's name and address from the tax records, and I put them in a spreadsheet. So every month I'll send, at the beginning of every month, once the Register of Deeds has recorded the deeds from the previous month, I send my updated newsletter and the new Excel spreadsheet to Pit Printing and Cary, and they print it and mail it. So I don't have to worry about it. And it's pretty affordable too, I think, for me not having to print it and address it and post it and mail it. But I update the spreadsheet every month with the closings that happened in my neighborhood too, to make sure that everybody's name is correct and everything. So,
you know, I've told the story before. When I used to send mailings out, I would go to my grandmother's house and we'd sit down at her dining room table and hand address hundreds and hundreds of envelopes because I was cheap and didn't know a better way and didn't know how to print labels and thought it looked better and this and that. The point is, there's a way to do it. Like you said, with your spreadsheet, accuracy is important to you. So you update that by hand. You can go to Realist and export a list, but it's not going to be, or CRS, whatever it's called now, from Paragon, but it's not going to be all 100% accurate. You're going to miss some houses, have some wrong names, have some addresses returned to you. So
yeah, once you get the spreadsheet built, it's so easy because when you go into Paragon anyway, check on what the closings were for the month.
Yeah.
You know, it's easy when you have your tax tab open too. You just change the spreadsheet. It's
Right.
for my neighborhood, the size of my neighborhood, about 300 houses. It's usually only a 2 or 3 a month.
Yeah.
It's not hard once you get it entered.
Awesome. Okay, and then they're asking if you could share an example of what your newsletter.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll send one. Heather's got a great one too. Ours are totally different from each other, like style wise, because we're just different. So I think the first recording that you did with Heather, I think
Yeah, I'll send that.
something, but I'll send mine too. I'll send it to Brian and he can share it. Or maybe I can post it in the Facebook group. I don't know how to do that, but
Okay. Well, you can send it to me now because I'll send out this recording anyway, so I can attach it there. So that'll be perfect. Any other questions, chat, or you can unmute yourself before we wrap up. Going once, going twice. All right, cool. Well, if you guys think of anything else, you can always reach out to me or to Allie. Allie, you've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Allie, you're so funny. Allie was so humble and couldn't believe that I wanted to talk to her, but you all heard it. I mean, her story is just amazing and inspirational and just a true picture of success. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
I look forward to meeting everybody once we can start gathering again.
Yes, very soon.
So many new faces.
Yep. All right, take care.
All right, bye.